Hey everybody, I'm Tim and it's time for another Electric Humidor review. These things have been coming out of the weeds over the last few years, and thank God, because they're one of the best ways to care for your cigar collection that exists today. The one that is behind me here is from a company I've never worked with called KingChii. And I'm hopeful for a really amazing unit. I'm going to take you guys inside the humidor behind me, but I have a few things I need to tell you about it first. I've reviewed like 5 or 6 different brands and their various humidors on this channel, and like in recent years I've seen a lot of similarities in the features with very few differences, even in terms of style and design. And one thing that encourages me about KingChii up front is that they seem to sort of have their own look and feel. This arena of like economy-based thermoelectric humidors is seemingly pretty competitive right now. There are a lot of people making them, but KingChii sets themselves apart, at least in the design, at least in the look. We're going to see what else they have to offer. This unit right here is their 8-liter unit. They say it holds about 80 cigars with 2 different shelves in it. In this review, I'm going to take you guys through watching for that, of course, that plasticky smell inside, how well the thing works, and getting it set up to see how many cigars it really truly holds. And so the first thing we got to do is unbox this bad boy and see what's inside. Well, after tinkering with this for a little while, I'm actually reasonably impressed with what I got here. And if you're looking for a great place to store your cigars, here is exactly what to expect. Now, first of all, there are some features I hope for in a unit like this, even when they're ultra affordable, that don't cost anything to add. One of those is instructions on how to season it, which this instruction manual does have, and they are written in English that you can understand. It surprises me that a lot of these units are made and the instructions come with no seasoning instructions at all. It's such a basic but very important part of how to do a thermoelectric humidor, and it's also done very differently than how you would do it with a wooden or desktop humidor at home, so it's important to sort of have it spelled out. And even when they do, it's usually written in English that is like sort of like you can typically make sense of what it says, kind of, sort of. It's sort of like they put these things together in the factories in China and just assume that Americans don't know how to read. And for some of us that may be true, but certainly having those seasoning instructions is a huge plus for me, and this has them and they're well written. But the actual seasoning process, again, is something that I really like about this. So the instructions in this will tell you what you'll hear from any instructions on how to season one of these. And again, it's different than a desktop. You fill the water dish in here with water, and you let the internal humidity reach 5% above where you want to keep your cigars. So if 70% is your ideal humidity, then you want to let the interior reach 75% before you add your cigars to it. But that actually brings me to another thing that I really like about this thing. I complain about these a lot. They typically come with a water dish that's about the size of your cat's water bowl. The problem is that takes up the space of maybe 10 cigars in a humidor just because it's kind of in the way. With this one, I'm really liking the fact that their water dish is actually built into the bottom. It sits flush with the bottom of the unit. This little tray right here doesn't hold a lot of water, but the thing is not very big, so I suspect this is going to last quite a while because these things religiously maintain their humidity unbelievably well. So the fact that this is a flush mount water dish is a huge plus for me. If there's a drawback to it, you have to take out the bottom tray to fill it. But again, it's not that much of a drawback because it's a convenient way to humidify your cigars that doesn't take up any space. Now, just a little bit about the exterior of this unit. I really like the design on the outside, actually. It's not quite as boxy. It's got rounded edges. It looks cool. The light inside is blue. There's a lot about this that's good up front. Of course, what really matters here is the door. It gets a fantastic seal. For an economy unit, you want to check that out. Make sure the thing doesn't flip open and close. I haven't encountered one yet that has, but also I haven't really encountered many as affordable as this one. It seems to seal better even than more expensive units I've tried out. Also, this one has got your gauges on the front where you can set your Celsius or Fahrenheit for the temperature so that the rest of the world can have their preference, Americans. And also you can turn up and down what you want your temperature to be at. Because again, this will control the temperature for you. So if you live somewhere where it's unbelievably hot all the time, you can turn down the temperature in here, let your house sit at whatever 86 degrees or whatever you psychopaths turn your AC up to in the summer, and then make sure that your cigars are at a perfect temperature. This is one thing that people ask me about a lot. They're like, inside my house, it gets so hot. Like, my cigars are getting hot too. What do I do? Like, other than getting one of these, there's not much you can do. A wooden desktop humidor will always stay at the same temperature as the room that it's in. It's just going to adapt unless there's something physically changing the temperature, which this one does a great job of. And because it's small, I found that it cools off really quickly. It's already down to 66 degrees in here, and I've only had it plugged in now for about 10 or 15 minutes. So love that. It works incredibly quickly. I have to wonder, though, if it would go as quick on the larger units. But then, of course, the biggest bonus and plus right now to this unit, that it holds over bigger, more expensive units from other brands, is a built-in hygrometer on the door. Lights up blue. This is great. Okay. A lot of them come with analog hygrometers, which I think are garbage. I try to get rid of them, or at least add a digital hygrometer as quickly as I can. But even in the ones that have had digital hygrometers, they're typically digital hygrometers that are embedded in a shelf behind the door, and the display's not lighting up. So like, you're looking in the window to see if you can tell what the humidity is, and if you can't, you got to open the door, and then the humidity goes haywire and has to readjust. This is great. The thing tells you the humidity up front when you open it. And this thing's already sitting right at 66%. Like, I love that. It wouldn't take very long to season this guy right here. So exterior looks and functionality, this thing rocks for a very simple, very economic unit. It's definitely got some stuff that even more expensive units don't offer. Now, as this thing is only a little bit larger than a wooden desktop humidor, you might choose to keep it on your desk, and it would look very handsome if you did. But at the same time, you got to think about noise. So for me, paying attention to how loud one of these is matters, and I have some of them that are sort of loud, especially if they have internal humidifiers that take water and humidify the inside. Again, this one just has that dish on the bottom. It's actually incredibly quiet. It's barely making a hum right now. In fact, I walked around the studio. My studio lights in here are making more noise than this thing is. My LED lights are emitting more sound with decibels than this thing is as I sit here. So it's very quiet. And then there is that huge issue of the smell. This one's tough because smell varies from unit to unit. Some people will get one and they'll say, that plasticky smell. And that's what we're concerned about. Plasticky smell is really pervasive. You open it up and all you smell is that it just smells like someone opened a can of plastic, or I don't know, what's really plasticky smelling? Your car in the summer. This one right here does not have a lot of that. There's a very tiny bit. And here's what I noticed and what I watched for. When I opened it out of the box, I got a little bit of that plasticky smell. If I was going to give it on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say it was maybe a 3. Enough that I was kind of concerned about it. So I wanted to plug it in and get the thing rolling and get the air moving inside and see just how it settled in. And really that smell seemed to dissipate. Like, if I take all the shelves out and stuff my head in there, I can smell that there is or was a plasticky smell, but certainly cedar is the prevailing smell inside this thing already. And that's just after plugging the thing in for, whatever it said, the last like 10 minutes or something like that. As far as shelf design goes, you can't have all wins with these things. There have got to be some drawbacks. Certainly, there's not a tremendous amount of shelf space, but again, the unit is very small. There's this tray on the bottom I like. It's like a very deep box of cigars. You'd probably fit 4 or 5 rows of cigars in there. I imagine that you could stack maybe 30 to 35 cigars in this, depending on the size and ring gauge of them. Really, really like this, like not shelf, but like basket design on this shelf. Top shelf though is flat. Now, The downside here is this thing is definitely too small to put boxes of cigars in. And if you do that, you're going to limit your space so much. It's like going to be a waste of space. So you want to put singles in there. And this flat shelf right here is just not going to be great. The second you pull it out, your cigars are going to want to roll off the side. So you'll kind of already have to know what's on this shelf. You won't be able to pull it out very far to look at what cigars are in there. So maybe put them in so the feet go in first so you can see the labels on the cigars, I guess. So you only have to pull it out a few inches. Sort of seems to be the best way to go and is a bit of a drawback. But then again, thinking about price conscious versus the features this gives you, I think the features like make this thing a high value already. So the fact that it's got a little drawback like this is not something I would worry too much about. And the interior is well lit with a blue light. The only drawback of that blue light is that by the time you cover the top shelf with cigars, none of that light is going to go through to the bottom shelf. But it's pretty easy to turn on and off with the button on the front. So, I mean, all around, like, the thing has got features that other units that are much more expensive don't have. And it seems to operate very, very well. So I would say what you're getting for the money that you spend with one of these, this is a great, like, entry to refrigerated humidors or electric humidors. If I could go back and do this all over again and I was getting into cigars for the first time, I would want to be able to go back and start with probably an acrylic jar humidor, like the ones I show in a lot of my videos, and then graduate eventually to a unit just like this. Like if I could be done with wooden humidors pretty much all together, like wooden humidors are sexy. That's one of the great benefits that they have. And if you like maintaining and cultivating your collection and spending time on it, then there's really no issue with it. But if you want more of a set it and forget it type solution, then something like this gives you that, because you add a little bit of water, your humidity reads on the front, you basically retop the water when you need to. And if you're storing cigars for a long period of time, then you want to rotate them every 3, 4, 5 months. But outside of that, this thing does all of the work for you. And KingChii has managed to do it for less than $150. So I guess that it brings that like thermoelectric humidor down to an even more affordable range where even more people will be able to get one, which is something I'm pretty excited about. Well, there you have it. This is the ins and outs of KingChii's very affordable 80 cigar humidor, something that can take your humidor collection from a desktop box to an elite luxury experience on a budget. And I'm actually really curious to see what the larger sizes of their humidors are like. This is very different than other ones I've reviewed in that it's very small. It's quite a bit smaller than the other ones I've reviewed, but also quite a bit more affordable. So I'll be interested to see how other versions of their humidors differ from this one. But again, if you are just getting into cigars and you're growing a collection and you're like, I need a place to store my cigars that's a little bit bigger where I can control the temperature, and you want it to have some of the sizzle of really easy maintenance and control of humidity, this thing is probably the best thing I've seen for accomplishing that task. But of course, I'll ask you, what do you trust in the world of humidors? What brand do you go to and look to? I'd be curious to hear from you guys because I know all of you have incredible experience in the world of cigars. So drop that down below. And if you're looking for more recommendations, you can look for them down there. And also don't forget to join the community on Cigars Daily Plus, where you can get even more out of this video. Thanks again, guys, for watching. This is Tim signing off for Cigars Daily. And I will see you in the comments.